Yes, Representative McDermott.
I rise in opposition to this measure.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I have to apologize to my colleagues. I didn't keep my eye on the ball in the beginning. I was focused on the opt-in, opt-out provision, which has been removed from this bill. And so that's what I was focused on. You know, Mr. Speaker, I guess I have a rhetorical question is who do we work for? And that's the parents, the constituents, the families. Last year with Pono Choices across this state, parents said, we don't want that. We don't want that, Mr. Speaker. And so a sex education program that parents found objectionable, they went to the Board of Education. The Board of Education changed their policy. And initially, we came in and attempted to override what the parents said. Now, Mr. Speaker, it's no secret. I have no juice in this room, and I have no committee chairmanship, and I have no authority. All I have is my voice and to speak the truth. Parents were outraged because of the objectionable material that was in those programs. And now the opt-in, opt-out is taken out. But I didn't keep my eye on the ball, Mr. Speaker, because now this is a major change in sex education policy in this state. It's no longer optional for middle school and high school to teach it. It is now mandatory with this bill from elementary school to high school, sex education programs. Now, if we could rely on the DOE to abide by state statute, I'd be okay with that, because state statute requires it to be medically accurate. That means precision. You see, when I go in to get my appendix out, they don't take out my gallbladder and say, well, close enough, McDermott. No, there's precision, there's accuracy. Appendix. Well, it wasn't medically accurate. Introduced a resolution on this floor, amendment on this floor last year to try and get my members to agree with me, but only the members of the Minority Caucus stood with me. But the Board of Education recognized it was indeed medically inaccurate, and they made some changes. But we can't rely on the DOE, Mr. Speaker. One of the flaws in this law is there's no mechanism or recourse to require that they are indeed medically accurate, other than the words on the paper, which they disregard. Now, the other issue is age appropriate. And the statute says, suitable to a particular age or age group based on developing cognitive, emotional, and behavioral capacity typical for that age or group. Mr. Speaker, I have a lot of opinions. Am I an expert in behavioral development of children? No. No. I got 8 kids, but I'm no expert. I'm not a child psychiatrist. I'm not board certified in behavioral health of any discipline. I'm not board certified in neurology or psychosomatic medicine. These are the disciplines. These are the credentialed experts who need to make that determination of age appropriateness. Not a gym teacher. Not a former HSTA union executive. Not an openly homosexual doctor who spent his whole life trying to get this into the schools. Not a vice principal, not a pastor. People who are credentialed in these disciplines, because in this body we talk about education. You should silence that before we come to the floor, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, recess. All right, well, House come to order. Let that be a good lesson, all of you. Turn it off, including me. Yes, Representative.
Good news and bad news, Mr. Speaker.
Continue, please.
You interrupted me, but you allowed me to gather my thoughts for a second wind.
That wasn't good. Go
I
on.
know my our colleagues are waiting with bated breath. But, Mr. Speaker, age appropriateness is a real issue. One of the programs I evaluate, by the way, I'd like to have permission to insert comments in the journal before I forget.
So ordered.
One of the
Mr.
issues.
Speaker, I yield my time.
Thank you.
So ordered.
Is that 5 minutes already? Wow.
Probably.
I'm just getting started. Mr. Speaker, that's good news. Mr. Speaker, age appropriateness. One of the programs we evaluated, and we called the DOE out on it, and this is why there needs to be a mechanism. This is why you need credentialed people, which is not in the bill. You need credentialed experts, people with the education necessary. And I'll admit, I'm not that person, Mr. Speaker. Again, it's child psychiatrist, someone certified in the behavioral medicine specialty, neurology, psychosomatic, all doctors, physicians who've made this their lifetime of practice. They're experts in this field, not a gym teacher, not a pastor. We pointed out the standard. They didn't follow the state statute, and they said, well, you know what? Our Blue Ribbon Committee said it's age appropriate. That Blue Ribbon Committee is all these people I just mentioned. That's who's on there. One medical professional. How can that be? And not even trained in this. Mr. Speaker, that's very problematic. Also, what's problematic is what kind of material are these kids going to get? I have seen it. Make no mistake about it, Mr. Speaker. They're going to be taught about anal sex. And they're going to be taught that oral, anal, and vaginal are exactly the same. They have the same risk tolerance, which they don't. They have the same end impact, which they don't. They are going to be conflated because it's social engineering. And who is the number one purveyor and writer of sex education material in the country today? Planned Parenthood. That's who's behind this bill. They want to brainwash these kids, inculcate them with a new set of values that's contrary to their parents. So that's why we got to get them early as possible, miss. We got to talk to them about 3 years old about anal sex. My goodness, Mr. Speaker, what happened last session? Across the state, parents said, get that crap out of the schools. And we come back, no, we're going to go younger. We're going to go younger. It reminds me of the guy who's sick and he's taking medicine. Every time he takes the medicine, it makes him feel worse. So the doctor says, well, take more medicine. And he feels worse and worse. This is what we're doing. Age appropriateness. Young children in elementary schools can suffer mental harm if they are taught sex education too early. Psychiatrist Melvin Anschel noted, quote, scholastic tests done on today's sexually educated 6 to 12-year-olds indeed show 6 to 12-year-olds. So what are we doing? What are we doing, Mr. Speaker? 6 to 12 years. Can't they have their innocence? Can't they be children? Please. I didn't come down here looking for a fight. I was happy till my office guy told me this was on the agenda. 6 to 12-year-olds indeed show that these students have accomplished less scholastically than pre-sex education students. The sex teachings given to the 6 to 12-year-old students keep sexual impulses stirred up, disrupting sexual growth as well as personal and cultural achievements. A partial summary of adverse effects due to the sex educators' inferences during this period is that, quote, they make 6 to 12-year-old student less educatable. Number 2, can block the development of compassion. And 3, weaken the mental controlling barriers of base sexual instincts, thereby creating and making a child vulnerable to perversions later in life. Well, I don't know if there's such thing as a perversion anymore, Mr. Speaker, because it's all equal. In these courses, there is no, have we lost all moral decency? Have we lost any common moral code as a society? Why do we have to bring this into the kids? Because that's what Planned Parenthood wants to do. And they're not a health organization. Their own website says they're a policy advocacy organization.
Representative, I remind you, this is the second reading. It's going through the Education Committee. If it passes, it's coming back here again. You'll have ample opportunity then to continue to speak on this issue.
Mr. Speaker, I earned my spot on this floor, and I'm going to speak. That's all I get in this building, and you're not going to take it away from me.
Well, within the bounds of civility, you can continue.
I'm being civil.
Please continue.
Thank you. Nowhere in these programs do you hear the concept of long-term
Mr.
monogamous...
Speaker, I yield my time.
It has been yielded one time already.
Nowhere in these programs do you hear the concept of a long-term monogamous relationship. Nowhere, Mr. Speaker. That's not part of the game anymore. Long-term monogamous relationship is a judgment. Really, the best sex is safe sex in the context of a long-term monogamous relationship. I remember Magic Johnson saying that. It's no longer politically correct. You can't say that, Mr. Speaker. And the worst part about these programs is they omit the elevated risks of HIV through these particular behaviors.
Mr.
How
Speaker?
can you do?
Yes, Representative.
Could we have a recess, please?
Recess. All right, members, please be seated. All right, well, House comes to order. Representative McDermott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And at your urging, I will try and wrap it up, sir.
Thank you very much.
The bad news is I'll come back at third reading. Jeez.
That's quite all right.
But, Mr. Speaker, the proponents of this are going to say kids need information and education. The more information, the more education, the more tools. The problem is we're giving them the wrong information. We're not giving them all the information. We're not being truthful and honest. We're omitting elevated risks from anomalous behaviors. We're not telling them that, Mr. Speaker, and that's going to be their attitude. The second thing is they're going to say, well, we just say no. I'm not going for abstinence. I'm not asking for abstinence, so I don't want anyone to get up and say, well, just say no, that doesn't work. Well, it worked with smoking, but that's not what I'm asking for, Mr. Speaker. I'm asking for abstinence-based that follows the statute. Now we got a problem because this is I want to send out a clarion call to everyone that this is a remarkable change in the sex education policy that starts with elementary school, and Planned Parenthood is going to write it and run it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.